Is up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast featuring Phil Perry. The Senator joins me for the trade deadline edition of Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast 2022. And Phil, let me just roll through some of the moves. Interesting position-wise, the guys who get moved. You got Bradley Chubb goes from the Broncos to the Dolphins. Wide receivers, Chase Claypool to the Bears, Calvin Ridley to the Jags, TJ Hawkinson, a tight end, goes from Detroit to the Vikings in division. And of course, Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs and running back Jeff Wilson to the Dolphins. Also had moves with Roquan Smith that we know of and Robert Quinn, both exiting the Bears. So nothing for the New England Patriots. Probably not an eye widener as we talked about coming into this, Phil. Your thoughts on the lack of moves by the New England Patriots?
I think it just speaks to what they had to offer other teams. Who's wanting to take Isaiah Wynn off the Patriots' hands right now, given his play and given his salary? Who's wanting to take Nelson Agholor off their hands right now, given his play, given his salary? They just didn't have much in terms of trade chips. They had people that they would have been willing to trade, in my opinion. And they did have, I would say, a significant trade chip in Kendrick Bourne. Significant meaning if you really wanted to deal him, maybe you could sneak a third round pick, out of somebody for that guy because he still has some term left on his contract and because we know he's pretty talented, even though the numbers haven't been there this year. But they shouldn't want to trade Kendrick Bourne because of those same reasons. So I think they were just in a little bit of a weird spot this year, and they're in a little bit of a weird spot, Tom, in terms of their record. They're not totally out of it. They're not a favorite either. So do you go all in? Do you sell? I think you just kind of stand pat, which is what they did.
Yeah, a lot left to be declared for a 4-4 team that absolutely has playoff aspirations. And really, the only place you can look at for the Patriots and say, wow, they really probably could use a boost. Not that they're set by any means all over their roster, but it's the offensive line that could be an impediment to their overall success. And we talked about it in the preseason. The tackle spots, whether it's Trent Brown with injury history or Isaiah Wynn coming off of an uneven 2021 and his injury history, that could be a position that you'd be concerned about. So, but what's going to shake loose from the tree on the trade deadline that you can say, yeah, that's going to help us? Not a lot.
Well, and definitely not at the tackle spot, right? If you get a capable player there, if you're trading for a capable player at tackle, capable meaning better than Isaiah Wynn, you're talking about giving up real draft compensation, draft capital as compensation to be able to acquire a player like that. That's just what those players generally cost when you see those guys get moved. So should the Patriots be willing to do that? I don't know. Again, you've been on a run now the last couple of years of having some pretty good drafts here. Are you willing to give away a second round pick, a third round pick to bring somebody back when you should be trying to stockpile these really strong draft classes so that a couple of years from now, you really are in contender mode? Tom, I'll ask you, do you think this is an acknowledgement not bringing in a piece? Is it an acknowledgement on their part that, all right, this is going to be an uphill climb for us? You know, if they were at the top of the division or near the top of the division, would they be swinging moves like the Dolphins are right now, which say, we're here, this is our year, we're in contention, we're going for it? The Patriots obviously didn't do that.
No, and you and I have gone back and forth on this, and I'm sure that we respectfully have probably gained common ground. This feels like a rebuild year, a reset year, not in terms of the way it was in 2020, but in terms of what are we, who are we, what are we going to be next year when our quarterback's entering his third year and he's got another year under his belt where he's changed and pivoted in the offense. And we have cleared away guys like Nelson Agholor, who we were forced to bring in because we had no wide receivers in 2021. And we've gotten some bang for our buck in the draft. I think 2023 is a year that they're kind of building toward, and a lot of the 2022 decisions have been made based on that. They're not trying to win now, but anybody with a realistic viewpoint of what the Patriots are at 4-4 and 21-21, which is exactly what they are since the end of the 2019 season, realizes this team is not bad, certainly not good, trying to find a way to get good. And then after they get there, maybe get really good. But by throwing pieces overboard or not understanding what you exactly have in-house right now, you're not doing yourself any favors. We had a conference call today, Phil, speaking of the quarterback and his development. And it was interesting to hear Joe Judge speak about Mac's performance on Sunday. Look, I know that the conversation since Sunday has been, maybe it wasn't all that bad, but to the naked eye, it didn't look great. 6 sacks, a number of turtling type plays, did do a nice job scrambling, converting some third downs. But overall, that knee buckling pick that he threw before halftime, once we get into the details, we start to realize, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. Joe Judge had this to say about Mac's overall performance coming back from his 3-game layoff, despite last week's cameo.
He really did some good things for the team the other day that won't show up on a stat sheet, that won't show up if you're just watching the tape and saying, hey, that's really a big time play by Mac of really understanding what the entirety of the game is, or understand the flow of the game. You know, where were we score-wise relative to the Jets, who's a very good defense? How was our defense playing at the time? What are the chances we can take? What are the calculated shots we're going to make as an offense? And how do we have to play within the, team flow of the game to make sure we keep everybody on track? And I think Mac did a lot of really, really good things yesterday, or Sunday, I should say, to help the team win. And again, it's not always the stuff that, you see on, the ESPN highlight reels. A lot of times the stuff you see in the film room where everyone else gets to say, hey, that's really a smart play. Mac does a very good job staying engaged. And the way he comes to work every day, he's geared on improvement on a daily basis. And again, it's, putting day by day together will lead to the growth for long term.
Phil, between Bill Belichick last week after the Bears game, when I asked him about establishing a level of performance and him citing, hey, Mac was out for 3 weeks. We're not going to relitigate the entire season here. To again explaining as the week went along that Mac was just back getting his feet wet, to Sunday, him making sure that we all understood that he was hit on the first pick, and others making sure that we understand that there was a lack of communication on the Jacoby Myers pick, to Joe Judge's commentary today. I think we overblew. Not that it wasn't there at all, not that it might not still be there. Levels of frustration on both sides. But this smacks of a relationship that, okay, we went through the rocky period. We understand each other now. Let's move forward and support each other and get the best out of this player. Not that they weren't trying to before, but we know that there was levels of frustration that Mac showed, and probably levels of frustration that the Patriots had with Mac's embrace of what they were trying to do. How did Joe Judge's comments hit your ear? Not rear, ear. Not your
Got
rear.
it.
Yeah.
Always better to be the second as opposed to the first. I would say I put his commentary alongside yours in terms of, some of the maybe frustration that there has been as they've gone through this rocky period. But then I also look at the Bailey Zappi situation here too. And I do think, and it's part of the reason why I asked Bill Belichick about it a couple of times in that press conference last week, I think seeing as much Bailey Zappi as they saw and seeing how it looked against the Bears, I think they now realize who their guy has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they weren't leaning that way to begin with, but I think now they're sure. And all of those things that Joe Judge mentions there when it comes to being able to adjust at the line of scrimmage. Matt Patricia talked a lot today about being able to communicate in a hostile environment and making that right decision. Even sometimes if that decision is to take a sack because you're going to be able to put points on the board. Those are things that don't show up in the stat sheet and that don't look all that good, but they would look at and say, okay, hey, good decision there. That's his strength. And that's something that a lot of young quarterbacks, as we witnessed with Zach Wilson, simply can't do. And in some ways it highlights why the early road was bumpy, Tom, because it felt like they were trying to take some of that brain power that Mac Jones has the ability to use on a snap in, snap out basis and put it in a box off to the side, especially during training camp where they're telling him you can't change the play at the line of scrimmage. We don't want you to adjust. Just run these things we're telling you to run. Be that quarterbacking automaton that we need right now, probably because it's install. And I understand it to a certain degree, but I think that was at the crux of what some of their disagreement was he was not allowed to be what made him a pretty good quarterback, which the coaches are now acknowledging.
And then it ends up being a mixed message too, when it's like, we want to be more aggressive down the field. We want to find a matchup. We want to attack it. So on one hand, you're saying, Mac, don't do anything that's out of the norm. Just run the play so we get it on film and get a look at it. We want to know what we have here with this new offense and how these players are running these plays. But when you have a shot and the bullets are flying for real, I want you to push it down the field. And now he's out of the box, under the center, and looking at plays that he can make to be swashbuckling, go get him, down the field throwing Mac Jones. So just it's a relationship, I think, that as it unfolds, a working relationship with a lot of unknowns and getting used to each other, they're understanding each other better. And I really think, I said before the season, resilience would be the best attribute that Mac Jones had this season. He would be a more resilient player by the end. I think this period is really starting to show, and the Patriots are appreciating and blowing or pumping up his resilience. They're giving, bouquets publicly for Mac Jones taking sacks, understanding the game plan, not pushing it down the field, making sure that people understand that that's not on him, that's not on him, that's not on him, that's not on him, which they should do, especially when it's a jailbreak back there for him.
No question. And I think this should be not superseding anything that they're doing schematically or concept-wise or how they're trying to put together their game plans week to week, but part of your plan as an offensive staff right now and as a coaching staff in general, with Bill Belichick at the top of the thing, obviously, is to build up Mac Jones's confidence, because he can be the most supremely confident player in the NFL. And given the way things went against the Bears on Monday night, that had to have taken a hit. And so whatever you can do to make him comfortable, especially when the pass protection really, Tom, from start to finish this year has not been very good. Like, I think that is something that we can identify as a trend. When he leaves week one with a back injury because they can't figure out how to block blitz zero, and they've got Nelson Aguilar as part of the pass protection, to week three when he gets injured, to, okay, the pass game looks a little bit better with Bailey Zappi in there, but it's a lot of max protect because they've been able to run the ball really well, and teams are selling out to stop the run because they know who's at quarterback behind center. I think those couple of games in there where they looked more efficient as pass protectors was a little bit of a mirage. And now we're seeing, especially with guys out and pieces moving in and out of the lineup, on the field, off the field, they have real problems as pass protectors. And so again, it comes back to, how do you make your quarterback comfortable? I think part of it is giving him concepts that he likes, that he feels comfortable with, that can get the ball out of his hands quickly. We saw that with some of the run pass option stuff that they worked in last week against the Jets. And I think they're going to have to try to figure out more of that. They should know by now, we're halfway through the season. You should know by now, you're not a great pass protecting team. So how do you make up for that? It could get better. You can band-aid it. You could just improve with your techniques. You could not commit penalties time and again to put yourself in obvious passing situations and put yourself at a disadvantage. But you should know that you're going to have to account for that on your end almost on a weekly basis. And so that, to me, is going to be a fascinating thing to watch play out as far as Matt Patricia is concerned and the design of the offense, because they're going to have to account for it every single game.
Yeah, and they're going to have to own it too. And I think that's really the interesting thing that we've seen over the since Bill Belichick stood up last week and began talking about Mac Jones' performance against the Bears and really absolving him, while not automatically giving him an appointment as quarterback for the rest of the year, absolving him of that performance, saying he had rust to knock off, and then continuing this week to say, these are the things that he did really well, even though you people didn't see it. These are things we like to see from him. So it's little gold stars being applied to the tops of the paper from each drive for him, that even if it looked horrible, and even if you're at home this week against the Indianapolis Colts and you take a sack and it's a 3-and-out and you have to punt it away, Patriots might still give a good make sure that you understand he gets a gold star, because had he not taken that sack, had he not thrown it into the fifth row, it would have been a bad result had he not done that. So it's really an interesting tightrope that they're walking with messaging and with getting the relationship back in okay, we both understand where we are. We both understand what we need to do. Let's plow forward. And I don't think that goes over big on from 2 to 6 on Felger and Maz necessarily. I don't think it goes over big on EEI with everyone hearing conversations on Early Edition or Boston Sports Tonight that, hey, they're trying to find common ground and work together, and they're going to make sure that they're giving them all the support they need so they do find out what they have. I think people would prefer, for the conversation and the content, for it to appear more dysfunctional and fractured. But I don't think that's the case. I think they're too smart to invest a first-round pick in a promising player and then allow any kind of dysfunction to sow the seeds throughout this season and undermine what his obvious potential could be.
I feel the same way, though I will want to see if and when they hit their stride offensively, what it looks like.
If and when is right.
And how different that might be from how things started this summer, right? Where we're talking about, okay, this is a new offense. It's a new language. They're trying the wide zone thing. It's not looking real hot. The run game's been pretty tough. Now, the run game's actually been okay this year, right? And Ramondre Stevenson has been an absolute revelation. And at times they've been dominant. But if by season's end, this is a shotgun spread RPO offense, I think we will be able to look back months prior and say, should they not have been more open to the quarterback's ideas when he presented them in the offseason? And listen, I understand there's a whole process that you have to go through when you're trying to install things, especially something new like the RPO game, which Mac Jones wanted to bring to the table. He told us that this offseason. It was something that he said, hey, I would like to be able to do this. There are teams who run them well. There are teams who don't. And I want to be one of those teams that fall under the former category there. If that's what they end up becoming, boy, I think a lot of what we talked about this summer, Tom, in terms of time spent, time potentially wasted on an offense that just didn't fit with this group, we could look back on that and say, man, could they have gotten out to a better start if they had just done things a little bit differently and maybe done things a little bit more like the way the quarterback wanted to do them.
And that's like you said, you have the most important resource in sports in many ways, a promising young quarterback on a rookie contract where you should be able to make hay immediately. And if you spent time spinning your wheels on an activity that you end up having to abandon before it's complete, that's an obvious waste of time. The Patriots still, they're 29th in red zone offense. Mac Jones has led them to 7 touchdowns this season through 8 games. I know he missed 3 still. In the other 5, cameo in one of them, he's led them to 7 touchdowns. So 29th in red zone offense, number 1 in turnovers, 16, also leading the league, fortunately, in takeaways with 16. Mac has the highest interception rate. He is off the bottom of the chart when it comes to Pro Football Focus quarterback rankings. That's okay. We've talked about it. There's a reason for all of that. Not that he is not culpable. He might deserve some blame. But it's more the situation for this player than anything else. What do we believe will happen this Sunday with the Indianapolis Colts? They moved to Sam Ehlinger that last week. Now they have moved away from Marcus Brady, their offensive coordinator. It's interesting. Frank Reich remains their play caller. So you have a Colts team in transition that, since Chris Ballard said the rivalry is back on, is 44-44 since 2017, and they haven't won a playoff game. Is this a daunting task for the New England Patriots?
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. They should win this game. Not only do you have upheaval offensively and a quarterback who is limited when it comes to his ability to work through the air. He is tough. He is athletic. And so maybe he'll give them some problems. Now he's not on the level of athleticism of a Justin Fields or a Lamar Jackson, no question, but he can move. And so do the Colts try to incorporate any of the things that they saw from those 2 losses for the Patriots against Baltimore and Chicago and say, let's just try to build a weekly plan around this because they've had a hard time stopping it. And why shouldn't we try with our young guy who's not the most well-developed passer at this point in his career? But I would expect, I guess, offensively, Tom, unless they do something like that, you mentioned it, because Reich is there, even though Marcus Brady's gone, I don't expect massive changes to the offensive scheme. And defensively, their numbers are pretty good. They're 7th in the NFL right now in terms of points allowed. But some of the more advanced numbers don't love them quite as much. Football Outsiders has them as the 14th ranked defense in the league, according to DVOA. And against the pass in particular, they are 20th in the NFL. So they have some, listen, like the Jets, they have some talent up front. DeForest Buckner, really good player. Grover Stewart, really big bodied, good player on the interior. Yannick Ngakoue has been doing it for a long time now. So they'll have their hands full along the offensive line, but I don't think this is going to be as tough a test defensively as the Jets were. And I think offensively, because of their quarterback, they're just not a real threat.
Yeah. So the Patriots, obviously, it's always difficult to go against anybody named Grover, but when you look at the Patriots, they should be able to come out of this one 5-4. Boom, they go to their bye.
Waka. Is that Grover? That's not Grover,
Yeah.
is it?
No, that was Fozzie.
That's Fozzie Bear thing.
That was
Fozzie Bear?
Yeah.
That's Muppets. I got my Muppets and my Sesame Street screwed up. Can you tell? We've got
you got a lot flying around. Yep. But you got Grover. You got the Colts, then you got to buy, and the Patriots get a good recharge, and then they have to deal with a pissed off, vengeful Zach Wilson. Zach, can we hear again from you?
Yeah, we'll have these guys in 2 weeks.
All right, so we got a late start on this one. Thank you, Zach, for that. We're going to put a cork in it. We will see you later in the week, expecting our guy Chris Long to join us on Thursday. The Green Light Podcast, former Patriot, former Ram, former Eagle, good friend. And enjoy the rest of the day. Sorry your trade deadline wasn't as active as it was. I hope your Halloween was better. Hey, one last thing. It's a weekend of must-watch events on NBC and Peacock. It all begins with the horses at the Breeders' Cup on Saturday at 3:30 Eastern, followed by Tigers. Clemson Tigers, that is. We're taking on Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, and it's capped off with Saturday Night Live. But that's not all, friends. The action continues Sunday with the NASCAR Cup Series Championship at 3 o'clock, and then the Titans will take on the Chiefs in Sunday Night Football starting at 7 p.m. All that is on NBC and Peacock.